That's an option.
Simplistic kind of guy. The cheese board was set. Good to go.
Well, it's this part.
Can it be tight?
Yeah, I need a screwdriver.
Do what? Just a clip? Or even like taping the mic? I don't know that taping it's going to really hold it. Typically, I'd use like a mic stand since it's a podium. I just don't want it to fall on her feet. That would be really unfortunate.
She doesn't have a binder or a
No. I mean, thank God, right?
About that. That work for you?
I hope so. Okay, does that work? Y'all need a mic check?
We will in a second.
Okay. We'll still be heading this way in like 2 minutes. Okay, ready? Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing. She'll be like up here.
Name, rank, and serial number, please. Wait, I'm call.
Probably here. Testing, testing. 1, 2. Can you hear me? Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. All good? Okay, how's that? Testing 1, 2. You guys good? I want to get started here in like 2 minutes if we could. Testing 1, 2. You guys good? Thumbs up from anyone? Okay.
One, two, three. Testing, testing. Good.
Keep going if you don't mind.
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Okay. 4, 5. Good?
Yep.
How's it look, Al?
Yep.
Good?
One of the flags. You got like 53, 54? Yep. 50. Mine's a little higher. Mine's like at 57. 58 is actually what mine's is at.
My favorite was 96.
Yeah, I'm at 58.
Huh.
Six.
I won this at 59, so. I'm just kidding.
Hey, Nelson. Do you, shoot, I'm out of here.
And they're like,
What do you do those days? What do you do?
yeah, I'm very hopefully. Oh, no, oh, God.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy President's Day to the greatest president of the United States in my lifetime. That would be Donald J. Trump. I'm here today for a couple of reasons. I wanted to unveil an initial policy platform for judicial reform here in South Carolina, and also wanted to talk about the DOJ and the Epstein files this afternoon as well, and take your questions about any of the subjects. Over the last couple of months since announcing my run for governor, I said I would be the most policy-driven candidate for governor in this race, and I am. The press has already said that we are the only candidate with a detailed plan to reduce the state income tax down to zero. Today I'm unveiling a policy proposal that Piper will send to you after this. I drafted this piece of legislation to do term limits on South Carolina's judges. If I have learned anything about South Carolina's broken justice system, if I've learned anything about talking to so many victims across the state of South Carolina, whether it is the Spivey family, whether it is the Federico family, whether it is folks in law enforcement who've investigated child predators like Donald Gresh, Travis Reed Gay, etc., is that our system is broken. And you know, you can liken it to, compare it to the Epstein situation, what's happening right now. We know that there were over 1,000 victims and only one accomplice is in jail. So the Epstein saga isn't just about the Epstein victims. It's about victims all across the country that never see justice. If you look at the case of Donald Gresh, it was a convicted child predator, pedophile, was facing 60 years in jail. He had 1,900 images of toddlers as young as 3 being sexually assaulted by animals and adults. 1,900 images. He served 1 day in jail. If you talk to the prosecutor is going to blame the judge. You talk to the judge is going to blame the prosecutor and the defense. That was a 15-minute plea deal, and the guy walked free, who lives in a neighborhood full of children, by the way. And then you look at Travis Reed Gay recently, who was a convicted pedophile, got bonded out, bailed out and on bond, and he violated his probation within 11 days. His probation says if you violate the probation, you go to jail. Well, they arrested him, and within a few hours later, he's out of jail. Some judge did that. If you look at the case of Scott Spivey, and I was told today on my way here to the state capitol that the judge in the Spivey case is going to rule against him. The decision's already done. They're going to rule against the Spivey family, and I pray that that source of information that I got was wrong, because the Spivey's family deserves justice. You look at what happened to Logan Federico. Some prosecutor, judge somewhere let this guy out who had over 24 convictions, felony convictions, 40 some odd arrests. You guys have reported on this. And some judge or judges, I think one of the main judges in that case of that murderer is no longer a judge. But we need term limits for judges. And so the bill that I am going to, y'all get here in a few minutes, is a bill to term limit judges to 12 years. And it's not 12 years total, it's 12 years in that court system. So you could do, you know, there's a way to move up. There's also term limits. So if you're a, let's just say a magistrate, you can only be a magistrate judge for 12 years total. If you are a circuit court judge, you can only be a circuit court judge for 12 years total. If you are a Supreme Court judge, you can only be a Supreme Court judge for 12 years total. So that's the way that it works. Some of them, you know, as you all know, are appointed largely by the legislature. There are a few that are by county that are elected. But whatever that is, it doesn't matter which court. You only get 12 years in that court. One of the other things that it will do that I put in a provision that would not allow a loophole, which is currently exists in state law, to allow the Supreme Court Chief Justice to appoint people out of retirement. So the Constitution says for a state Supreme Court judges 72. State statute says 72. But there is a workaround and loophole that allows a Chief Justice to appoint a judge in retirement to rule on some cases. I'm doing this because the system is broken, the system is corrupt. I've seen it in a number of cases. I'm going to go sit in on a case next month. It's a mom that a judge threatened to put in jail for violating a gag order the mom did not violate. I'm going to be in Myrtle Beach tomorrow supporting the Spivey family, who I don't think are ever going to get a fair shot in South Carolina, based on the information that I've been given. The girls in my case, the rape victims, the judge would not let them move forward in the cases as Jane Does. So exactly what just happened when the DOJ gave out the what should have been redacted names of Epstein victims, a judge decided in South Carolina that 2 rape victims that simply want justice can't go forward as Jane Doe. How devastating. So this is something that it's not political, it's deeply personal. You will have the language of that bill and what it does, but this is going to be the first of a series of policies I'm going to put forth on judicial reform. I supported the bill that came out of the House last week under JMSC reform, anything to get it out of the hands of legislators who have cases before the prosecutors, cases before the solicitors, and cases before the judges that they are appointing. The cleaner, more ethical, less corrupt the process will be. But this is an issue that affects so many families across the state, and we need leadership who's going to understand how devastating these decisions can be, what goes on. And I've learned recently, because I was pro se for a couple of weeks, not much longer, but I learned through the judicial process about all these privileges and what rights I had that I didn't know that I had, and how some of my rights have been taken away in a court of law. And so I'm going to work very hard not only to reduce taxes to zero, work on illegal immigration, work on the energy crisis that our state is in right now. We've got to have judicial reform. People want a fair shot, a fair chance in our court system, and this is the first step to doing so. Now, transitioning to Epstein, on Saturday night, the DOJ decided that they would tell the world that they've released every single document related to the Epstein files that they were required to by law, and then they threw out a list of names of high-profile people. Those are not all the files. They're holding on to files. In fact, I sent a letter to the DOJ on Thursday requesting a list of files that they removed from their website because they threw up some files and they took the files back down. I want to know how many files, what files they were, and why they were taken down. Now, some excuses are, well, the files weren't properly redacted. Well, if they were not properly redacted, what was improper about them, and when are they going back up? And so that's problematic. As I read through their letter and their excuses about how they are protected by certain privileges at the DOJ, they don't have those privileges, okay? So when a case is concluded and the investigation is over and there are going to be no more indictments, you can't hide behind a work product doctrine, work product privilege, and other privileges that they are citing, because the case is over and the case is closed. And I believe the DOJ has recently acknowledged they are not going to make any more arrests, and there's no indication that they are. So they cannot, it would not hold up in a court of law when a federal judge decides that they release all the documents properly. The answer is going to be no. And I'm going to fight hard. I have met with these victims. I've read through many of the files. Some were as young as 12 or even potentially younger. You had parents that some of them appear to have known what was going on. You have billionaires and prime ministers, former prime ministers, dignitaries, etc. And everyone walked free. And you're going to see more letters from me. Today I sent a letter to the Southern District of New York. Many of the files related to co-conspirators in the Epstein cases are from the Southern District of New York, and those files came to the DOJ redacted. I don't believe it. I think it's all a cover-up. And so I asked the Southern District of New York to provide those files to the DOJ, thereby to members of Congress unredacted, because in those files are names. And I want all of those names. And I will be releasing names at the appropriate time, and hopefully very, very soon. But I'm vetting all the names because they're not all predators. They're not all co-conspirators. Some may be witnesses. But there were a lot of women in the files that were selling other women and underage girls to Epstein. One of the other things that you're going to see is tomorrow I'm going to release a letter to the CIA. I believe that there are documents in the CIA's possession that the American public would want to know. In some of the emails, you can see Jeffrey Epstein talking about a CIA dump of information into the media. There are some emails that indicate he may have been an asset, either of a foreign intelligence agency or our own. What I do know is based on some of the emails at some point, you saw it under Alex Acosta, at some point as they were aggressively investigating him, all of a sudden something switched. Something turned off, they stopped it. They did the exact opposite and were basically catering to Jeffrey Epstein and violated the law to violate the victims again. And so you'll see a series of letters. I believe there may be more South Carolina connections. And so I'm doing some investigation on that, and it may relate to some federal agents. So, I'm researching that and looking into that, because some of the behavior you can see in some of the redacted documents with different Border Patrol agents, very suspicious sort of stuff. I think there's more going on than meets the eye, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Again, this is not political for me. This is deeply personal. I met recently with the victims last week. In fact, it was on the 1-year anniversary of my floor speech, and I'll be doing everything I can to expose the truth, regardless of who it names. My list of names, when I put it out, will be nonpartisan. It'll be equal opportunity, Democrats and Republicans. I don't care who you are, but if you were affiliated with this monster, we're going to expose it. So with that, I'll take some questions on either thing.
How many bills is your JMSC judicial reform package?
I haven't decided yet. I'm working through it in real time, but it'll be probably at least a half dozen or so. So some of it I support already. So there's like 2 bills right now about magistrates having law degrees and how they, I support that. I would consider something like that a piece of it. Term limits on judges, whether or not lawyer legislators can have any bit of the process of this, that's going to be no. They should not be involved in any process of picking judges if you are an attorney. The level of, I think, potential corruption there is just too grave and too high. But also, we've got to be able to have a real way to get these people out of there and impeach them too. And the same thing goes with solicitors. I mean, you have some counties, like in Sumter County, at one point last year, Sumter County had over 60 murder cases and attempted murder cases on the docket that weren't being tried. In Charleston County, over 350 murder cases and attempted murder cases not being tried. The number of people that are coming to my office every day on different cases. There's a murder case that I'm going to expose here soon that was in another county. And this was a disabled man who was stabbed to death in 2017. And this was going to be a state prosecuted case. It's 2026, 9 years. Do you think there's ever been a trial? And his murderer is walking free 9 years later. So there's just so much that's broken with the system. I'm taking what I've learned and then going to show how to fix it.
Are you going to try to push for if the legislature is not involved in actually voting on judges?
What's that?
Do you want a situation where the legislature...
Oh, for sure. I've drafted a bill for that already. Yes, I don't want the legislature involved, but again, they're never going to take that power away from themselves. They're never going to do that. I can propose it until I'm blue in the face, and I will propose it, because there are some states, we're one of the only states in the country that does this, but in a lot of states, the governor might appoint some, or there might be some advising consent of the Senate, or some hybrid thereof, and I've put that policy together, which I'll be releasing to in the next couple of weeks.
With a lot of these policy pushes, obviously they're coming on the heels of conversations that are still happening in the General Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like talking about specific facets of your proposal, it goes a little bit further than what they're proposing. Obviously, you're running for governor. When
Mm-hmm.
if you get there, you're going to be dealing with the General Assembly that's more or less going to be doing, I guess, having these conversations that
Mm-hmm.
voters want to have. So. In these instances where you're having your own proposals and the legislature is offering proposals
Mm-hmm.
that you appear to disagree with, would you just outright veto something you wouldn't agree with?
No, everything's in a negotiation. So what I'm doing here by proposing policies that I've drafted is how I would operate as governor. So you're gonna see, and have already seen, a slate of policies that I embrace. And sometimes I embrace things from the legislature. Sometimes I disagree with the legislature. Sometimes I'm going to take the best of both worlds and say, hey, since this can't pass, try this, right? And so that's part of making it work, because my goal as governor is going to be the most productive governor in South Carolina history, which means you have to sit at a table and you have to do some give and take. And some of my bills might go a little further, some might go less, and then in some cases, like when I did the no tax on babies proposal, that was taking something that had already been proposed but slimming it down into something that could pass in a faster fashion. So what you'll see me do is propose things that would be easier for whether it's a conservative, a moderate, a centrist, whomever in the legislature that I think would be more susceptible to passing.
I remember, not a year ago, but several months ago, we spoke and you talked about using the governor's office as a sort of a bully pulpit to get things across.
There's that too.
I'm hearing a bit of a shift in tone, though. Would you say you abandoned that approach?
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. If you want to explain something that's very bad going on, you have to say something. And so I've never been a shrinking violet. I mean, look what I'm doing right now over the Epstein files. Some would say against my personal and professional, to my detriment, but it's the right moral thing to do. I mean, I just watched a video that someone sent me on the way over here about a state senator saying that someone tried to entice him with $100,000 to vote on the tort reform bill. That kind of thing has to be exposed, and it can't go on. So I think it's a bit of both of negotiating. What you all haven't reported on yet is I'm the 22nd most bipartisan member of Congress. And so the press will report one thing. I've actually been very successful. I just passed a bill out of the Oversight Committee unanimously. Actually two bills. Every single Republican and Democrat on the committee voted for it. And so I know that if I'm looking at something I want to get across the finish line, well, where can I find that common ground? Where can we find that middle ground to actually get something done? And I know that as governor, I won't get everything that I want, but neither will the legislature. So, we do have to work together, and there's going to be a bit of that in the process.
Congresswoman, on that note of sort of working with the legislature, but also standing firm on your priorities, are there previous South Carolina governors that you would look to as kind of a model on that?
I'm my own person.
You have timing on a lieutenant governor announcement?
Nope.
Do you have a short list or anything?
Yeah, I got a short list.
Want to share it with us?
Nope. No. Now it's all cooking with gas right now. We're cautiously optimistic. We have our first candidate forum tonight, and very much I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. Any other questions?
Representative Mace, Attorney General Pam Bondi released a letter to Congress saying no records were withheld on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. What would you say to that?
That's not true. That's not true. And in fact, I spent the weekend reviewing some information, and there were pinhole cameras in every single room of every single property of Epstein's properties. Those were not, neither the audio nor the video were included in those files. There were cameras throughout his planes, audio and video. Those were those. There are files that have been taken down off the DOJ's website. One of them is actually highly embarrassing to me, because it just somebody, right after I announced my run for governor, put something out there about me and Ron DeSantis from, 20 years ago, which I didn't even know Ron DeSantis was a person back then, but they should disclose that. That's in the files, and it was taken down. Why was it taken down, right? Everything should be put out there, but it's not, and a lot of the information they have is redacted. So, for instance, when it comes to the co-conspirators and naming names of those individuals, you can't name the names. I can't read the names on the Southern District of New York documents because they were redacted when they came over to the DOJ. What's that about? And why are they hiding it?
Speaking of that document, I remember another name with that, Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon's come up in other files, and obviously there's millions that haven't been released yet, just given his presence in those. Do you feel the documents that haven't been released, would they exonerate President Trump in this conversation?
Trump has already been exonerated. He's been exonerated by Virginia Giuffre. He's been exonerated by all the victims. And I wish that the president I think he's gotten some bad advice. I think that if his advisors had told him, say the files exonerate you and get them out 8 months down the road, I think there'd be more prosecutions. There are people in those files that need to be prosecuted. And there are people in those files that need to go to jail. And some of those people are billionaires, and some of those people are dignitaries or former dignitaries, some with titles and tiaras, right? And they need to see a cold, dark cell. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to be naming names. I've done it before, and I will do it again. But I want to make sure that I'm not naming a real victim, a real underage victim. That's very important to me because their names were exposed, and I don't want to accidentally do that. But I mean, I'm in possession of names of people. There were a lot of modeling agents that were female, even, that were, giving him girls. And the email that talks about the Brazilian girl and a 9-year-old, that was a typo. I believe she was 19, not 9. That was a female modeling agent sending him an image of a woman who was naked or undressed. And, I'm going to put her name's going to be in the files. So But it's just I'm just one person, and it's a lot. It's deeply disappointing to see people who lied. I mean, why did you go hang out with a pedophile on Pedophile Island with your kids? Why would you joke about being a pedophile with a pedophile and, invoke the 25th Amendment with someone who's supposed to be your friend, the president, right? So, there'll be a day of reckoning for those people. And my thing, I just want to focus on the victims and focus on an outcome that gets them justice.
Yeah, cool. So, just to clarify, like the stuff that we can't see, that the public can't access, you believe what isn't out there would exonerate the president?
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. The president's exonerated. He was a whistleblower early on. He's exonerated in the stuff everything I've seen.
Great, thank you.
Congresswoman, last week you made some statements about the lieutenant governor saying that she needed to apologize to President
She does. She needs to fire the folks on her team who tried to insinuate that on the anniversary of my speech that I'm a child pedophile. And if you take that logic, so too is Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. She owes the president an apology, the sitting governor of Florida, and me. She has totally disqualified herself in the race for governor by making such an outrageous statement. I have done nothing but fight for victims because I am one, and I know how broken the system is, and I'm going to fix it for survivors. It's egregious and should be disqualifying for anyone running for governor. Shameful, disgusting. It's just nasty. It's one of the nastiest things I've ever seen a political campaign say about anybody. And so she said it about me. She's saying it about the president as well. She's disgusting, and it's disqualifying.
And when you say the nastiest thing you've ever seen, you're specifically referring to that comment that was
She's accusing me and basically the president and Ron DeSantis of being pedophiles. I mean, is there anything worse than that? I mean, that's disqualifying. She shouldn't even be on the stage tonight. She shouldn't be on the stage for any of the debates, making that kind of claim about basically that logic, the president, myself, and a sitting governor. I mean, it's disgusting and it's shameful, and it is fully disqualifying in her run for governor. And she needs to fire the people on her campaign that are saying those kinds of things about me and the president.
You're referring to Justin Evans and Chris Ryan?
Yep. I mean, and to give, what was the excuse? Oh, they've gone rogue. No, this is your campaign making these claims about your opponent who's leading in the governor's race, and by extension, the president, because his name's in the files. And I can't help some lunatic wrote an email anonymously right after my announcement for governor. You know what I mean? Anything after 2019 is literally on the crazy train. So I've done a lot of interviews, and I would caution you all, if you're looking at an email in the Epstein files after 2019, it's crazy train. You need to look at the stuff from earlier, prior 2018 and prior. That's where the more legitimate claims and information reside in the files. So, anything else? All right, good to see y'all. See you on the campaign trail soon. Thank you.